Yes, Lou.
Good. Rebecca, hi Rebecca. What is the best way to solder gold embellishments onto a silver ring? Which alloy / solder?
Oh, I love things like this. Embellishments. Edge of your silver ring, balls, bits of sheet. Okay. Now, what I like to think is that I love to sweat solder. Sweat solder, for me, is the #1 type of soldering that is basically the perfect type of soldering for the majority of cases. And in this case, if this is gold and that is gold there, what I would be inclined to do is to sweat solder, a little bit of solder. Just I use a different colour for this today. I would use a little bit of solder and I would flood some solder onto the gold. Okay? And now I would use gold solder, because if I've flooded silver solder onto gold, there is a chance that that solder is going to go all the way over and cover the gold embellishment with silver solder. Likewise over here, I would always make sure I sweat solder my bit of gold solder on a piece of gold, because if that solder happens to flow over and on top of that ball, because it's gold solder and that is a gold ball, the solder really isn't going to show up an awful lot. If that was silver solder on top of a gold ball, it's going to show, and that gold ball is now going to look silver. So what have you got to do? You've got to try and file this ball, buff this ball to try and get the gold back and get rid of the silver that is on it. All right. Then what you would do is you would perhaps make a slight little divot on the surface by here. So when you put that ball then into this area, you then get your flux, and you put your flux around by here. Okay. You put your flux on that side now, and when you put the two together and you heat then from underneath or from the side, the gold solder that is on that ball will be transferred through onto that bit of metal that is in contact. And likewise over here, you would flux this area here, you would put your embellishment on top of the ring, heat from underneath or from the side, because don't forget, if you put your heat on top of these embellishments, they are going to melt before the ring gets to the correct temperature solder. So always remember to put your torch on the biggest area, at the biggest amount of mass to heat up, and if these are in contact with the ring, the heat will transfer through from the ring onto the embellishments, and when both these temperatures of the embellishment and the ring are the same and they get nice and high, the solder will go, oh, I love you, and it'll embrace, it'll go, oh, you're just the right temperature for me, and it'll just go towards it, okay? Now, the best thing about this is, because you've just put your bit of flux here, the solder is not going to go bleh and everywhere else, because solder, again, likes to be between objects. Solder doesn't like to go out on its own. If it can stay, you know, like a hug, you bring a hug together, yeah? That close contact, oh, is great, yeah? This is why, yeah. So when you hug, that point of contact between the two people is lovely and warm, and that is the best place to go. That does not spread anywhere else, does it?
You're saying the solder is the hug? The
solder, yeah. Well, that's the one person. This is another person's. The essence. Oh, write that down. Seriously, that'll go in my book. Solder, quoted, Louise, solder is essence of a hug. Because, brilliant, well done, Lou. You've listened to this far too long. So the solder is the essence of a hug. When those two objects come together and it's the right sort of temperature, oh, magic happens, yeah? Magic.
I think you're getting a bit carried away.
Magic happens, and the solder won't go anywhere else, because the solder, the hug, likes to stay between the two surfaces, between the two people, and the solder will not spread anywhere else. That was the question, wasn't it? That was the answer. I think that was the answer, yeah.